economy, abortion, the border, issues that matter to you. AZ's On the Fence. Now here's your host, Drew Grunwald.
And welcome to AZ's On the Fence. Joining me this segment is Linda Milhaven. She's running for Scottsdale Mayor, and Linda has an extensive background. 40 years as a banker, 30 years as a community leader, a business person, a civic leader, a community volunteer. She got her undergraduate from Wellesley College.
That's right.
And her master's from Columbia. I believe your undergrad was in psychology. Was your master's also?
No, I got an MBA in finance from Columbia.
In psychology to finance.
I got them all covered.
Right? And then 40 years as a banker. So, it seemed like you've got quite the experience to tackle any type of city or civic function and finance. So, City of Scottsdale, how are they doing with their finances?
Well, we've got a long history of being really good with our finances. We've got AAA bond ratings and have managed expenses well. I termed off of City Council almost a year and a half ago, and during the current mayor's term, I think that things have gotten a little bit out of hand. They're going to be asking the voters in November to increase the expenditure limit, which is the state imposes a limit on what cities can spend regardless of the revenues they collect. And in 2019, we were at 86% of our expenditure limit, and today we're at 96% of our expenditure limit. Now, I'm urging people to vote yes on that expenditure limit because we need the money to be able to pay for critical services like police and fire. But I think we need a much better accounting of why did we get so out of whack? Why did our expenses grow faster than inflation and our population growth to get here? And we certainly should never look at it as an open checkbook. So,
right. We have responsibility to spend the dollars that come in. And obviously, a lot of that money is allocated years in advance. Now, I know that for the fourth year in a row, Maricopa County is reducing property taxes, but does that necessarily change the local funds that come to the city of Scottsdale? The county property taxes doesn't affect what would come into Scottsdale, would it?
No, not what the city's primary sources are the city's property taxes.
Yeah.
The sales tax from the city for what people spend here in the city, and then state shared revenues. So the state divides up sales tax revenues across the cities, and so those are the primary funding sources. The county is a source of funding for grants for roads and things like that. So we do get benefit of the property taxes paid to the county, but not directly.
Right. So let's let the audience know. You say you termed out as a city council, but you have been in city council, Scottsdale City Council for...
I was on city council for 12 years.
12 years, right? And had you run for mayor before?
No. I served 12 years. As I said, I was termed out a year and a half ago. Right. And as I looked at who was stepping up, I didn't see anybody that I could get behind. And when as you mentioned, spent 30 years as a community volunteer, chaired the Chamber Board and the Better Business Bureau and the Arts Board. In fact, I was honored this year to be inducted into Scottsdale's History Hall of Fame for my service to the community.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. We need a sound effect so I can give an applause, but I don't get to interview as many people as I would like to that have your kind of experience. So, for instance, I've interviewed somebody who's a recent college grad running for their first term in the Arizona House. And I'm like, congratulations for such a young individual. It's almost obvious. I mean, I ask my guests why they're running for a particular position. Yours, to me, is pretty obvious. You've got the experience. And is it a bit of a thankless job sometimes? Or have you found some really, a lot of enjoyment in what you do, and it's urged you to continue on in your public service and run for mayor?
Well, it's certainly a lot of hard work.
Oh, sure.
But it's also very gratifying when you can drive around the city and say, I played some part in making that possible. Right. The having spent 30 years in service to the community, including the 12 years on city council, I feel proud to have played a role in making Scottsdale the amazing place that it is today. And so, yes, it's hard, and people don't always agree, and sometimes when we disagree, people think you aren't listening, but you're listening. But I got great advice when I first got elected. there was a contentious vote, and 55 people showed up and said say no, and 45 people showed up and said say yes. And I said, well, when I ran, I said this is what I wanted to do. And a fellow council member said, you need to remember, Linda, that there's 240,000 people sitting at home hoping that you're going to make the right decision.
Yeah.
Oh, pardon me.
That's okay. We can edit that.
So it gave me the courage to do the right thing and look at the greater good.
Awesome. You know, for those of us who have, and for a lot of people who don't, when you work with a group of
Pardon me.
That's okay. When you work with a group, whether it's 10 people, 100 people, 10,000 people, and you're trying to, cast a vote or help make a decision one way or the other, you can't please everybody, right? Sometimes it's a yes or no answer. It's a yes or no question, or they want a yes or no answer, but the question is far more complex than something like that. And when you make a vote and you've got kind of a 50-50, I guess the best thing for you to do is vote the way you told your constituents you would vote when they elected you. And so you're either going to make your constituents angry for voting the other direction or go against what you said you wanted to do when you vote the other way. So it's never it's not a science, is it? It's politics is an art.
I think we always need to listen to all sides.
Yeah.
I think we need to be able to articulate all the arguments, pro and con, as well as the people making those arguments, so we understand the issue.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to explain. Sometimes folks want the city to do things that's not within the city's power.
Right.
So we need to be able to explain to folks what the city can and can't do, and then explain the reasons why. So if folks understand that they've been heard, but then you disagree, I think we get to a better place. But if anybody thinks that we're all going to agree, it's probably not the right job. You're right.
Absolutely not. And governing is not for the faint of heart. I mean, you've been elected to a position, and then you go in and do your best to do what you were elected to do. And then times change, right? 5, 10, 12 years. When you first started in public office 12 years ago, our city, our economy, so many things have changed, and maybe some of your positions have changed over the years, and I can see that happening. Now, as you're running for mayor, you have a list of priorities, and those priorities via your website are to protect taxpayers and grow the economy, to protect our water supply, to protect the people of Scottsdale, protect and preserve our quality of life, and protect and preserve our neighborhoods. So there's a lot of protections going on there, right? City of Scottsdale Mayor. When I listen to arguments these days, it's about, are we going to allow that mega stadium to be built in our town, or that 15-story hotel that they want to build, or those types of things seem to be where a lot of the contention is. But at the end of the day, the mayor's in charge of our police department, you're the one that helps protect the city, the citizens of the city. You also want to protect the city. Mm-hmm. How do you see yourself doing that?
So that's a pretty big question, and you prefaced it with a lot. So this is an amazing community. So the first thing we have to make sure is we don't mess up what we already have. And so that's why you see protect, protect, protect. But we also need to plan for the future, right? Grandma used to say, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. And so, having invested so much of myself in the community, I want to make sure we continue to stay on the right track. And so, what you talked about, zoning issues are the things that people get excited about. Thankfully, we don't have anybody wanting to put a stadium in Scottsdale, and we don't have any 15-story buildings. It's not allowed. So thankfully, that's not the issue. But zoning issues can be pretty contentious. And so, we really need to think broadly when it comes to zoning, right? So folks will say, I don't like that use. Well, then the question is, let me give you an example. People will say no apartments. Right. So then I'll ask, okay, tell me what it is about apartments that concern you. And it boils down to traffic, water, and not in my neighborhood.
Right. NIMBY.
Well, our single-family neighborhoods are special, and so we don't want to infringe on them.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of ground to cover, and running for the city of Scottsdale mayor it's a big city. People think of Phoenix as the great big city. I noticed that all of the people running for Scottsdale Mayor say nonpartisan. I don't believe anybody is truly nonpartisan, but maybe the role of mayor for the city of Scottsdale is they don't want anyone running as a particular Democrat or Republican. So everybody runs nonpartisan.
What that means is our parties are not on the ballot.
There you go. But your opinions and those types of things will be made, and I would imagine that most people could probably figure out maybe what your political affiliation is if they chose to listen close enough, and we'll find out from that. We're going to head into a break, but when I come back, I really want to ask you more about some of the things that you will do as the Scottsdale mayor, as well as some things that I think some Scottsdale residents and the Valley residents might be interested, such as some of the Airbnb rules that have been put in place and some things like that. I think people are curious. So I appreciate Linda Milhaven joining me on the fence today. When we come back from the break, we've got some more information for you, and please stay tuned. We'll be right back. At A2 Luxury Real Estate, we're not your typical real estate agents. We're appraisers, finance professionals, and savvy real estate investors. Whether it's determining the right selling price, connecting you with local and global buyers, or guiding you through all aspects of the sale, we are your partners every step of the way. We're passionate about real estate, and we know luxury. The pinnacle of luxury starts with A2 Luxury Real Estate. Visit us at a2luxre.com or call 602-888-1433. Realty One Group. And welcome back to AZ's On the Fence. Joining me is Linda Milhaven. She is running for Scottsdale Mayor. You're on the ballot. There's a primary.
Yes.
That's going to be July 30th.
Yes.
And then the finalists will be on, obviously, the ballot.
The top two go to the general.
Yeah, go to the general in November. Last segment we were talking about zoning, and and I brought up some topics about growth. I'm sure zoning's a big topic for Scottsdale. Let's let you expand on that some more, and let's talk about some of the things that you hope to accomplish as Scottsdale's mayor.
You bet. As I was mentioning, right, when folks are talking about zoning, it really boils down to water and traffic and keeping my neighborhood and my street really special.
Yes.
And so, every parcel in Scottsdale has permission to build something already under existing zoning. So some folks will say, stop all the growth. Well, we can't do that without taking away people's property rights, and the city doesn't have the right to do that.
Right.
And the city does a lot of long-range planning and anticipates what's going to happen in the future and builds roads in anticipation of that eventual growth for water and for roads. Where the city council gets involved is when people want to change their use. And so, like I said, folks are a lot of concern about apartments. And then the question would be, well, if you don't want an apartment on that parcel, what would you like to see? Because different uses have different demands. Some of the newer buildings are much better stewards of water and are much more water wise because of water saving technologies and new techniques and things. And so some of the newer projects can be better water users than the existing. And some uses create more traffic than others. A store creates a lot more traffic than an apartment would, square foot by square foot. And so we need to think really broadly when we're looking at zoning about what are the traffic impacts, what are the water impacts. If you don't like that use in this location, where else? The other thing people should be aware of is the voters approved a general plan that says where what goes. Mm-hmm. And so, I know there's concern about apartments, but all of the apartments that have been added were added to commercial areas near employment centers, so as not to intrude on our neighborhoods, and is consistent with the general plan that says put the most intense uses together, so that we have these beautiful boulevards and streets and neighborhoods. And so, when we look at zoning, it's really about what else and what are the relative impacts and where should it go.
Yes, and there's a reason why when you're driving down a busy road and a busy intersection, you see a big apartment complex being built. They put those types of developments on your busier roads to protect the neighborhoods with the single-family residences. Mm-hmm. And if people did a little more research and understanding in how that goes, if they've ever been to a town like Houston, Texas, where there is no zoning, and you have a church next to a liquor store, next to a strip club, next to a school, that doesn't seem right.
And that doesn't work in Scottsdale.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't work in most places. And so it is nice to have zoning. Understand what the zoning is before you buy a piece of property, or go through the proper process to get the zoning changed. And if it's a good enough reason and a good enough project, that may happen. Zoning changes happen all the time, but within reason. Before the break, I had brought up Airbnbs. That tends to be a divisive topic. If you own a house that you rent out as an Airbnb, hopefully you're a good steward of that, and you don't allow parties and those types of things. But there's a lot of people who like the Airbnb concept and a lot of people who hate it. And for those who hate it, I believe they live next door to a party house. And I feel for them. And shame on the owner who allows that to happen. I just wish the people would understand that you got one bad actor. It doesn't make all Airbnbs bad. And so